How is everybody doing? And welcome back for another Strength Chat episode. Today, I've got a very special guest for you all. Today, I'm joined by our coach who has got thousands of hours on the gym floor. He's trained celebs, he's trained athletes. He's also a published author and writer. Today, I'm joined by the one and only Gareth Sapstead. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I am not so bad. Thanks a lot for taking the time to jump on.
You're very, very welcome. It'll be good to have a chat about whatever the conversation direction takes us in.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So how are you? What have you been up to? What's been happening in your world recently?
I suppose the biggest thing that's dictated my last year and a half, just over that, is having a newborn baby. So he takes up a lot of my time. So kind of balancing the addition of that with running a team of coaches, managing my own clients, running that kind of side of the business. On top of, I've just got another book deal that I'm working on at the moment. So all things add up. We're all busy, but still, it's one of those things. As you know, you get, I suppose, pigeonholed by people who say they don't have enough time to train, go to the gym, etc. And they kind of turn around the conversation and they're like, it's fine for you. You've got time to go to the gym. You're around the gym all the time. Blah blah blah. The reality is, everyone's busy as each other. And also for us, one of the last things we want to do, we're writing training plans all day, etc. And form checks and whatever, or doing in-person coaching. One of the last things we sometimes want to do is hit the gym at the end of the day. So so my point being that, over the last year and a half, my training really hasn't suffered at all. I've just had to be a little bit less selfish in terms of when I schedule my training sessions in.
Yeah.
Eating healthy is sometimes a challenge when your little one's trying to feed you food. You can't exactly log a spoonful of Weetabix or something into my fitness pal. It doesn't quite work. But besides that, it's just managing to stay on top of things and thriving really.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned that because I know obviously one of the biggest challenges that a lot of people have is time, and especially everything that you've got on there. Being able to manage your time a little bit more. This might be a little bit of a tangent, but is there any? Because I think it's quite on topic. Is there any challenges that you found, or have you tried to change your either work schedule or training schedule around too much, or have you just tried to not go with the flow, but do you know what I mean? Try and match it to, all right, okay, well, this is the template that I'm going to work off, and I'm going to try and get everything done in there.
Yeah. So first off, so training really. So I'm a bit of a creature of habit. I've always it might sound selfish, but I've always prioritized myself, my own training over that of my clients. Okay, and I think everyone should do the same, because you're number one. If you're not functioning well, then you're not going to be the best person. You're not going to function great for other people as well. So I kind of always take that mentality of, I think it's sometimes called the monk mindset. If you spend half the day working on yourself and then the other half bettering others. And I kind of take that mentality with things. So the first half of my day is all about self-improvement. It's, when I do a lot of my reading time, and that self-improvement could be listening to a podcast. It could be actually doing some writing myself, but then doing the research to do the writing if I'm gonna add in some references and read peer-reviewed research as part of that. But then also that's where my gym time fits in as well. So obviously having a little one, that's made it more like I suppose a more condensed period of time. So up until I drop him off at nursery in the morning at say 8:30, that's his time. That's quality time spent with him. The only work I suppose I'm doing in that period of time is, on social media. If someone's tagged me in something overnight, it's click reshare, whatever. That's the only kind of work I'm doing during that period of time. Once he goes to nursery, then that kind of dictates the start of my workout time. So he goes to nursery, straight to the gym after that, spend an hour or whatever I'm doing in the gym. Home, dog walk, podcast, headphones in the ears, getting my steps in, getting some cardio in. And as I said, maybe a little bit more self-improvement after that. And then that's when my work begins.
Yeah.
When I'm training, I'll be honest, I'm sometimes guilty because most of the time now, the majority of my work is online coaching now. Yeah. I transitioned out of the gym 5 or 6 years ago now. So I'm fully online, apart from seminars and workshops that I do and the odd kind of guest in-person session. Is all online. So, and a lot of my clients are US based or North America based. So I tend to get a lot of messages throughout the night. So when I start my workout, I kind of, I might reply to a few emails or a few messages from clients. So I'm always quite kind of communicative with them. And then, as I said, when it hits the afternoon, that's when I do my work, or that's when I do my intensive work. And the way I treat that now is I do it in like bursts. So I'll set myself, say, 2 hours of like an intensive burst of work. The phone is elsewhere, all distractions are off. I'm at my office desk and it's get this task done. Yeah. I'm big on lists. I work off of lists. My whole life is dictated by lists, and it's a never-ending list in the notes on my phone that, it never gets any shorter. I'm always adding things to it. But the thing that's most important at the top of it, that list gets done first, and then I kind of forget about the rest until the important stuff's done. Yeah. And then by the time I've done that, and I try to get 2-hour intensive slots of work in each day. That work could be, programming for clients. It could be reviewing form check videos. So, questions and DMs I'll reply to during the day, but more kind of intensive stuff I'll do during that period of time. Writing work I'll do during that period of time, whether it be writing an article or, working on the book that I'm currently working on. That gets done during that time as well. And then it's pick up time from nursery. And then it's, quality time kind of thing as a family. After that, I try not to really pick up my phone too much, but as you pick it up every now and then. So yeah, that's my average day. Yeah. The thing is, though, he doesn't go to nursery every day of the week. So Tuesdays and Thursdays when he's not at nursery, my partner, she might have him at home or she might take him out or whatever. So work's a little bit harder to get done. So those 2-hour bursts of work, aren't always 2 hours. They're more like a broken few hours. And that's just because I can't really concentrate as much. Yeah. But the way I do it is I schedule the easier stuff, the stuff I don't need to think about so much on those days. Whereas the things that I need to be like in the zone, for example, writing work, then I'll schedule for, when I'm kind of at home by myself during the daytime or whatever. So the only thing really that's changed since having him is my schedule is no longer necessarily dictated to by what I make it. It's dictated to by his day, really. But then also just being more conscious, being more aware and present when he's here. So before he's at nursery, after he's at nursery, or days when he's here, just seeing that daddy isn't, on his computer all the time or on his phone or whatever, really. Yeah. But it's probably made me more efficient when I am working rather than, doing bits of work here and there.
Yeah, I think that's I'm glad you mentioned that, because as you were saying, it sounded as though you've got those clear boundaries, because I know, and actually I had a conversation about this in the gym earlier today, actually, about trying to have that balance a little bit and feeling like, oh, well, I need to get work done, but my kids are at home. Whereas actually, I like what you said there, having those bursts of work, it can be a little bit more efficient, because if and I try and work like that as well, trying to block out my day. And if you've only got 2 hours to do something, you can actually get quite a lot done in 2 hours. So a little bit of a tangent there, but I thought that was quite interesting what you mentioned there. obviously you've touched on a couple of bits there in terms of, the online training and the writing that you're doing as well. For anyone listening who might not know your background, how you got involved in, your background in training, your background in coaching, do you want to give a little bit of a background to yourself?
Yeah, so I suppose my journey started out. So I wanted to be a rugby player from a very, very young age. And I kind of went up through that system, academy system. And I kind of got to the point where I was probably 15, 16 years old, and I was just starting to realize that I actually enjoyed the gym side of the rugby more than the actual rugby side of rugby. So I enjoyed the physical side more than the actual game itself. And obviously, the older that I got, the more I realized that and more kind of embraced that side of things. So my I suppose my early career started out as a strength and conditioning coach, actually working with rugby players and football players as well, actually, and other team sport players, and kind of coming up through that route. Having connections within various academies, being part of those academies is helped. But my route kind of came up through that strength and conditioning kind of route. And it meant I did my undergrad in sport and exercise science, did my master's degree in strength and conditioning science, and got my CSCS with the NSCA as a certified strength and conditioning specialist. And then was mostly working, as I said, with players. At the same time, the reality is, as a strength and conditioning coach, pay isn't great. Okay, it's one industry where, especially if you're just starting out, or let's say you've just graduated, you're expected to intern and work for free for quite a long period of time. And then, like being an athlete at academy level, it's lucky then if you're picked to be, an actual coach for that person, or for that team, because most teams are just use and abuse interns, and the interns just kind of chop and change between different teams and end up not working for any, or the odd few get a chance. So I didn't actually spend that long interning for any pro teams. I was lucky to meet some good people and to be and I suppose to get some recognition. I was pretty good at what I was doing at the time. Obviously, now you realize how little you knew at the time. But still, for that age and compared to a lot of graduates in the same boat, I was in a pretty good place, and was offered to work with teams. However, kind of backtracking, you just don't get paid a lot. So at the same time, to supplement myself, getting through university, getting through my postgraduate degree, I was a personal trainer. So I was a personal trainer at like a big box gym, basically. And long story short, I ended up actually, yes, the pay was great. I ended up filling my books up with clients. And I actually ended up enjoying training those style of clients more than I did the athletes. So basically ended up enjoying training the people that just wanted to get in great shape, rather than the athletes that, especially more so in football than in rugby. In football, they really don't want to be in the gym. They just want to be outdoors playing football. They don't see the benefit of being in the gym. Rugby players, like they understand it because I suppose there's a closer connection with you've got to be strong, etc. Footballers don't quite get it. So you're working with people that don't necessarily want to be there, or they're at a high level where your job pretty much is just to make sure that they get on the field at the weekend injury free. So you're kind of maintaining strength levels or doing your best. Off seasons are very short, so you can't make many improvements with them. So I was just kind of frustrated with working with those people. Whereas the people that I just happened to be picking up were people that quite high level people in terms of, I've never really trained too many people that were very large, very overweight, very out of shape, very inactive. That's not really my forte. I've always trained people that are in okay shape or really great shape and just kind of want to take things to the next level and just enjoy training them more. So, go 15 years later, and those are the people that I've really solely trained now. You know, last week and the week before, I was with a few of the England rugby players, working one-to-one with them. That's slightly different. But you know, most of the time, I'm working with people that want to look great naked, high-end transformation clients, photo shoot clients, and you know, people that have competed at a very high level, IFBB pro, bodybuilders, physique athletes, and so on. And then as part of that, you know, I have a team as well. You know, we call ourselves Elite Physique Training. So my entire team kind of specializes in those kinds of people, really. And we all supply all that training through online.
Oh, nice, cool. I had to smile and nod. I always remember when I was at uni, I did an S&C internship, and I used to have to get two buses to get there. This is before I got a car, and then I once missed my second bus, and I just thought, and it was actually raining, and I just thought, yeah, I don't think this is for me. So yeah, I can completely relate to that with the writing side of things. And I always like to add on this as you know, from stuff that I've read and trying to improve my own writing as I've got older as a coach, as a trainer. Was the writing side of things something that came off the back of just experiences or getting asked, and the books and those side of things? Because obviously what you mentioned there, you know, the hours that you've done on the gym floor picking up those clients, and I know from speaking with younger trainers as well, does that something that come naturally, or did you want to give it a go, or did an opportunity just come up from there?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, one thing I'd like to touch on is, you know, that I suppose the craze in online coaching. Yeah, every trainer wants to be an online coach now, and the problem is with that is that they just don't spend enough time on the gym floor, first of all, developing those skills before they then go online. You know, I hate to use the terminology, but they're not spending enough. You know, they're not putting enough sweat in on the floor before they actually, you know, go online. Um, you know, I spent many years in person, you know, training 50, 60 one-to-one sessions a week, absolutely smashing it, and kind of got to the point where, you know, I was just kind of kidding myself with how long I was, you know, able to sleep before starting the next day again. You know, finish at 9, start at 5:30 every morning, kind of thing. And yeah, but look, training in person, you develop skills that you just can't online. And I think what it did for me is that it opened my eyes to, at the end of the day, our job is a problem solver. Okay, we solve the problems of our clients. Okay, and and certain exercises that we might use or adapt for them is simply there to solve a problem. So you know, you kind of can identify people that poo-poo all over certain exercises, and when you identify those people, pretty much 9 times out of 10, they're people that have never worked with many real people on the gym floor or haven't worked with multiple different types of people. Whereas if you're putting sweating on the gym floor, you're seeing everything. You're seeing, I don't know, you're seeing the 60-year-old that's had a total knee replacement. You're also seeing the 16-year-old that's going to the gym for the first time. You know, you're seeing absolutely everything. You're seeing every injury, every kind of cranky limb, and you're chasing after different goals as well. You're also, you know, you're also there as a motivator. So, you know, you get to understand people's psychology a little bit more and makes them tick. So having that and doing that from a very, very early age, you know, I was a gym instructor from when I was 16, personal trainer from when I was 18, actually working, getting paid from those ages. And also at the same time, coming up through the academic route as well, and doing all the you know, scientific based readings as part of that as well. And at the same time, actually reading a lot of articles outside of, you know, that curriculum as well. I think that's what really made the big difference, was doing a lot of reading outside of what was being taught in that as well. So I was reading the likes of you know, tnation.com, especially I remember at 16, 17 years old, and learning things from that, then kind of checking that the science makes sense, and then applying that and testing that with clients. So just having that kind of trio of things to, to educate me, all kind of work together. So going back to your question, seeing these people that are regarded as like high level coaches writing for the likes of tnation.com, and I still regard them as like if you're an experienced coach, tnation.com is like the epitome of who you should be writing for. Look, anyone can write a men's health style article. Whether they get in men's health or not, that's a completely different thing. Okay, and I've been in men's health a few times, but that's a different thing. The style of writing is very, very simple. Okay, whereas T Nation, you're literally writing for your peers. You're writing for people that are very educated, will pick at everything that you say, will try everything that you say as well. So I saw them as like the gold standard. So from a young age, I was influenced by these people and kind of wanted to be them. Okay, so that meant that I was, writing some things. And first off, I was writing some things for my own website, and, putting them up on my own website. And then I started writing for, at the time, it was called muscletalk.com. They've since stopped. And I think they sponsored some bodybuilding shows now. But anyway, there was a website called Muscle Talk. So I was writing about eccentric training when I was 16 years old at muscletalk.com and isometrics and things like that. So that was kind of when I started, really. And then that just progressed to being in bigger and bigger and bigger publications. And, like reps under the bar, reps with a pen or on your keyboard, it's the exact same. The more you write, the better you get at it, the better you can communicate with people. But you've got to do it, and you've got to get those reps under the bar to get better at it. And then, as I said, now, I'm in the likes of tnation.com weekly. I'm kind of one of the coaches that I was looking up to. I'm in various places, and that's me kind of giving back in terms of like what I've learned or techniques that I've seen work in the real world, but also kind of putting some science behind it as well. And I know it sounds cheesy, but I'm all about legacy. Okay, so an article of you on a website is going to be there for a very, very long time. Same with the book, it's going to be there for a very, very long time. I'm continuously gonna give back to the industry. So that's why, even if I'm short on time, I still try to do at least a little bit of writing each week for whoever.
Yeah, nice. I must admit, from having read T Nation since I first started training, like I can imagine that's a cool feeling being there and reading it, because I've seen your articles on T Nation, so that's cool on that. And I think from what you've said there, and this is something that I try and so basically we run an intern program from like people that are at like college and going into university, to come and see what it's actually like on the gym floor, because I think, and this is again might be a little bit of a tangent, but there's the knowledge that you get in books, but like what you mentioned, how can you actually implement that on the gym floor, which I think is I think is a little bit of a breakdown in terms of where people are lacking in terms of skills, like that art of coaching. I know for me, when I first started, I wanted to say everything, like I've read this new article, I've read this new journal, and whereas actually the more I've progressed and the more experience I've gained, I actually probably say a little bit less, and try and speak the client's language rather than they don't want to know all the research or anything like that. So I think it's really important that you're reading the articles and not just looking at because the social media is all encompassing now. You can watch a 15-second reel, which I'll put reels out, I'll put things out, I'm 100% get that, but it's that long form content that I think is sometimes missed a little bit. And that's why I just like to ask about writing, because I know for me, like the shelves in front of me, I've got books in front of me, I've started on Audible, which is just a little bit better with the podcast, a little bit more digestible rather than the books. And I just think that's a skill that sometimes need to be reminded a little bit. So it was good to touch on that.
It's just off the back of that. it's so we talk about content creation. So not everyone out there has to go out and write. Okay, you can think of long form content as as writing, I don't know, 600 to 3,000 word articles. You can think of long form content as big YouTube videos. You can think of it, this is long form content, right? A podcast is long form content. So, you know, it depends on your skill set and what you like doing as well. So for one person, they might be a good talker, so a podcast might be great, or it doesn't have to be in front of camera like this. It can just, you can start just by talking into your phone and using a podcast app and upload it, or talk to your friends or whatever. If you're great on camera, then, find a videographer and start a YouTube channel, or just start filming yourself, vlogging yourself if you're cool with that. Or, if writing's your thing, if you want to go a little bit more into depth with things, then, go down the writing route. I do a little bit of everything. I don't have a podcast. I've been on podcasts, obviously, but I like YouTube for some long form content, and that's something I'm trying to get better at, is the long form content of YouTube. But then articles for me is where kind of my forte is, because I just don't think enough people put the time in with that long form content as articles. Therefore, for me, that's kind of a bit of a unique kind of area, really, because there's not as much competition there. Mm-hmm. Whereas, we look at short form content, we look at Instagram Reels, for example. Everyone's doing an Instagram Reel, right? If you've got anything above an iPhone 6, it's a half decent video, that you can put out there, and it's absolutely fine. If you've got an iPhone 12, then, you might as well have the quality it uploads to on Instagram is the same as a professional camera. Okay, so you've got everyone with professional quality stuff on Instagram with some quirky captions. Everyone's inserting captions over their things now. It's not hard to do. Flashy emojis, etc. But it's not really engaging people. It's not teaching people, what they really need to know, because it's not going into the depth. But, if you create thumb-stopping content that then directs that person to the long-form content, then that's helping people learn more, become kind of better as well at what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for that is one of the questions that I always ask when we speak to the interns is, so what are you reading? Who are you following at the minute? And there's been some where I actually don't know who they are. So my next question then is, okay, so what have they written? What other things have they done? And don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot of information. I mean, we've got one intern who he uses YouTube quite a lot, and actually there's a couple of things on there, and when I watched them, I was like, okay, cool, like that's actually useful, and I learned a little bit from that. But I think there needs to be just that follow on from there, what's behind the curtain a little bit. And it's kind of that thing of, a lot of people will be like, but you need to do social media, and you do, but there's also the thing behind it as well, because, there's some, you look back before social media, it's like, well, how did people find information? Well, it was written down, it was on websites, you'd have to go find it a little bit more. So
you had to work harder to get it.
Yeah, definitely. Whereas now we're kind of in this age of anything that we want to know is out. There's probably too much information out there. So now we're in a position of trying to filter it a little bit to find out what works. So yeah, I thought it was good to touch on that. I know we've spoken about sort of the writing side of things and behind the scenes a little bit more, but just wanted to touch on the training side of things from your experience. And there is, obviously you've mentioned about the transformations, taking that to the next level a little bit, but also you've got that performance background as well. And there's that phrase of every athlete is a human, every human is an athlete, and there's a mixture of this training in there. But I just wanted to chat about your take on trying to have that balance between training for performance, whether that's in the gym or whether that's reflecting what you do on the gym, on the field, or wherever it may be, but then also taking into account, the body composition goals, and, having that athletic physique, if you like, which a lot of people mention about, and what's been your approach and what's your take on it in terms of balancing that with training, if there is a difference.
Yeah, so I think a common problem with your average gym goer, okay, is we all know about the SAID principle, right? Yeah, specific adaptation to impose demands. So you're going to get better at the stuff that you do more of, right? Training is a stimulus. So, if we set foot in the gym and our goal is to bench press the most weight and have the biggest chest and having 6-pack abs, okay, then we're going to be training a little bit for each of those. Now, the problem is if we're training a little bit for each of those all at the same time, that can sometimes be it can sometimes work. But for the majority of people, if we're training for all those things at the same time, chances are we're never going to achieve any of those things, or we're never going to optimize for any of those things. So that's when phases of training come in. We could do training phases that are focused more towards strength and, I don't know, building up your bench press, for example, if that's a lift that you want to improve, or you're a power lifter. And that can be followed up or have beforehand hypertrophy based phases where body composition is the goal, gaining lean mass. And then we can also have fat loss, cutting type phases, which would improve our ability to see our 6-pack abs, right? And obviously nutrition kind of go alongside that. Back to my point, most guys, especially when they go to the gym, they don't really know what they're doing, they know what they're doing, as far as exercises and stuff's concerned, but they don't stick to that principle, that SAID principle of training with a specific purpose or a specific outcome in mind. So by training for everything, obviously they're not going to end up in at the same spot. Let's take that bench press as an example. Now, we all hear that the bench press is a great chest builder, right? Builds your pecs. Okay. Now, if we're talking purely from a hypertrophy standpoint, I could probably, think of 20, 30 exercises that would be better than a barbell bench press to build most people's chests. Okay. But not everyone thinks about it like that. However, if you want to build a bigger chest in terms of strength, okay, rather than hypertrophy, then it's a great exercise, right? But it's only a great exercise if you're trying to improve strength on the barbell bench press. Yeah. Does it transfer to anything else? Well, that's another question, right? Does me being able to bench press, I don't know, 150 kgs transfer to me being able to do a handoff in rugby that will throw anyone out of the way? It's questionable. We might have to do some exercises that help with that transference over to that, because a lot of that's going to be limited by core strength and resisting rotation as you punch as well, and obviously power or rate of force development. So to me, as I said, it always goes down to training for what the purpose is at that period of time. If we're bench pressing to lift more weight, then we're going to be thinking about bench pressing with more of an external focus and how much load we've got on the bar. We're obviously going to be thinking about that setup. We're probably going to be getting some more of an arch through our back. We're probably going to be driving our heels into the floor a little bit more. We might take a slightly different grip. Just take our strongest grip on the bar, for example. And then we might think about cues, depending on what's going to work well. You might think about cues like spread the bar, engage your lats, whatever. Okay. Whereas if we're using the bench press, and as I said, I do think there are many exercises that can be better than the bench press. But let's say we're using the bench press to build muscle. We're not actually thinking really anymore about how much weight we've got on that bar. We're focused on what that is doing as an exercise to our chest. Okay, are we feeling it in our chest? Are we maximally squeezing our chest through that entire range of motion? Are we targeting our chest the most? And actually, interestingly, if we talk about the bench press, research actually shows we can get more muscle activation, more EMG in our pecs with our feet on the bench, i.e. raised off the floor, without being able to drive through our legs. We get more activation through our chest by doing it that way than with our feet on the floor. Will you be able to bench press the most? No. Is it for everyone? No. But it's out there. There might be a use for it with your feet elevated. So when we're trying to build muscle, we're simply using it as a tool to build muscle, and we've got a slightly different focus. If we're trying to build, force development, power, and how much weight we're lifting on the bar, then we're going to be thinking about it as a tool in a slightly different way. And as I said, that translates to the phases that we might do as well. You can phase things. If let's say I'm someone that wants a bit of everything, we can phase things. And as I mentioned before, we can do, say, a hypertrophy phase followed by a strength phase, or you can flip that around if you want to, followed by, if we want to, like a fat loss phase or whatever. And ultimately in, I don't know, 20, 30 weeks time, we make some steady improvements. Or we can use like a conjugated approach, like a West Side barbell style of approach, where we start out our workouts with some heavy lifts. We do our bench press at the start, and then we go into maybe we do some power work as well, and then we go into our repetition focused method, and which is more hypertrophy work towards the end. So we're kind of simultaneously training that all within the same workout or in the same week as well. So the intent is still there, even if you're training for everything, but we know exactly when we're setting up the exercise, we know what the purpose of that exercise is and what we're trying to get out of that exercise, rather than just use the exercise to lift as much weight as we possibly can. So hopefully that kind of answers your question. There's a lot we can go into on that. There's a lot of rabbit holes there, but
there's kind of two things from that. One from the client's point of view, but then one from the coach's point of view as well. And sometimes, especially for the majority of people, most people's goals are they want to lose a little bit of weight, they want to get a little bit stronger, build a little bit of muscle, and that's kind of quite generic. So they won't realize if they've got a generic program, because there will be a little bit of fat loss in there, a little bit of strength in there, a little bit of muscle building. Do you think that's where people are, when we're talking about social media, where people are just looking for those short-term programs, whereas like you said there, 20, 30 weeks, a longer term thing, rather than 6 weeks, this is gonna get you everything, because they're trying to cram everything into one. And then the next part of that, from a trainer's point of view, a coach's point of view, actually trying to, again, when we spoke about, longer form content, looking behind a little bit, being like, okay, so what is it that you ultimately want to come down to? And you kind of touched on it at the start. Sometimes people just want to look good naked. They want to be able to take the top off on holiday. Or it might be a case of people are in, again, what you mentioned when you started training people are in okay shape, good shape, but they want to go it from there. So just trying to just dig a little bit deeper and just find out, okay, so what is it that we're going to go on? And then they can start filtering out about, right, okay, so if this is the goal, these are the tools that we need. Like for bench press, for example, that made me smile, because I've had a similar conversation of, right, well, the bench press isn't actually going to be the best exercise. I think, is it a Dan John quote where it's, keep the goal. This is the goal that we're aiming for. These are the tools that we're going to aim for. So I realise I've then fired two quite long questions at you there, but do them two kind of make sense?
Yeah, we can kind of lead one into the other. So one of the biggest mistakes I see, we go back to the first question, one of the biggest mistakes I see is misunderstanding that consistency thing, right? We hear it all the time, got to be consistent. And I think what most people hear is, got to get to the gym, okay? And that's great, all fine and well. If I set for myself, I want to hit the gym 4 days each week, and I hit the gym 4 days each week, I'm consistent, okay? To me, that's not consistency. That's ticking boxes, right? That's just ticking those boxes. Consistency is every Monday, for example, doing a similar or structured workout that leads into the next, consistency to me is sticking with the same training plan 3, 6, 8, 12, 20 weeks even, depending on your psychology and on what you're aiming for. That's consistency, because when you follow a structure like that, from a coach's perspective, I can see what improvements are being made week by week because we're tracking all the numbers. Same online coaching. I'm tracking all the numbers. I'm seeing where improvements are being made. I see when, I think people see a plateau as a bad thing. I see plateaus as great because that means you've been consistent long enough with the same exercise that you've seen a plateau, right? That's a good thing we've hit that plateau because now I understand that that exercise has worked great to that point. Now we need to change it out for something else or layer in something else so we can continue to make some improvements. And maybe we revisit that exercise again in another 6-8 weeks time, whatever. So that's consistency for me, and that's what makes the big difference. So and that can mean, so let's go back to working with your average personal training client. Now they like a bit of a show, let's be honest, and you like to feel as though you're giving them an experience and a bit of a show. So psychologically doing the exact same workout with them, let's say you're only seeing them once a week, okay, which isn't an ideal personal training client, but you get them, okay? Yeah. You're seeing them once a week and you're like, no, we've got to be consistent. Every Monday we're training this, we're doing these exercises. Reality is probably after week 3, 4, or 5, that client's probably just not going to show up, or they're going to start cancelling because they know what's in store. They're not getting a bit of a show. They know what's happening, even though they're seeing improvements and you're trying to point out the improvements that they're making. They're seeing the exact same workout all the time. So if we're speaking about it as from a personal trainer point of view, that consistency might be, again, we'll stick with the barbell bench press theme. It might be, okay, first exercise every Monday is a barbell bench press. Okay, we're going to load it like this. We're going to use this set rep scheme, or we're going to also regulate it, whatever. But that's our consistency right there. Okay, depending on the type of client, maybe exercise 2 and 3 are also the same, right? But then after that, we can chop and change that as much as we want to. Those assistance exercises, those secondary or tertiary exercises, we can rotate those around a little bit. We can mix those up a little bit. We can throw in some fancy stuff. We can, we can put on a bit of a show for our clients, and that's kind of where we get that mix of being consistent on one hand and seeing the improvements that we want to see on one, and hitting those strength targets. And then on the other hand, also client retention, enjoyment of training, but then also we can get some good results, even if we're switching those exercises over. Because at the end of the day, more isolation type exercise or secondary exercises, even, we can afford to switch over more often, especially if we're, hitting some reps with those things. So that's kind of what the approach I would tend to take if we're looking, I think we've got the same type of person in mind here that we're personal training. So that's the approach that I've always found to work really well from that personal training approach. When it comes to a lot of people that I tend to work with nowadays, they are, I've said it before and I'll say it again, they're robots. Okay. If I gave them the same training plan every Monday for 20 weeks, they would do it. Okay. They're, some of the best physiques in the world, IFBB pros, Olympians. They know what to do every time they go to the gym. They're super comfortable with exercises. They know what they're doing is the right thing. They're very trusting. They're highly coachable. And they just go in and get the job done, and they're happy if they see progress. If they're getting bored with workouts, they somewhat don't care as long as they're seeing the progress and they're seeing the results. So that's slightly different, really.
Yeah.
And to the second question, I think what social media has done, it's caused us to look at an exercise and want to try an exercise for trying an exercise's sake. Mm-hmm. Rather than look at that exercise from or looking at that exercise and looking at, that person's got a great chest and he's doing this chest exercise, that must be a great chest exercise, and therefore trying that chest exercise. Okay. Whereas you and I might be able to have a better understanding, a better filter, and look at that exercise being done, blur out the person that's doing it that could have big pecs for any reason, okay? But blur out that person, see a little bit more of the biomechanics behind that exercise and what it's actually doing, and you and I will both know a little bit better whether that exercise will actually, be the best fit for someone to give that person bigger pecs. Yeah. So we end up getting a lot more people that do an exercise for an exercise sake, or they're told that it builds bigger pecs, rather than have that filter, which I think is super important to have on social media, so we can actually see an exercise and be like, you know what, it's a great exercise, but it's great for this, and it's probably not great for me right now.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why, you know, I obviously share a lot of exercises, and a lot of those exercises, I just make a note at the bottom and I say, it's one for your toolbox. Okay. Whether you use it or not, that's like I'm not telling you you have to use it. I'm not telling you you need to use it. I always put best in quotes as well, because best is relative. Okay. You know, it's up to someone whether they want to use it. But the bigger your toolbox, the more exercises in your toolbox as a trainer, the more options you have. If you suddenly see, you know, X or Y problem with a client, you've got a solution because you've got this exercise in your toolbox, rather than having this small toolbox, this, you know, limited understanding of things. So hopefully that's kind of answered both those questions and kind of connected them together.
Yeah. Well, one thing that you mentioned there about all the, you know, there's lots of exercises that can be shared on social media. And what was going through in my head is a lot of people think that if it's not a straight bar, if they're squatting with, or a straight bar that they're benching with, it's not a proper bench press or squat. And the example that I'll use is, I've got a client, he actually had like shoulder surgery. So he only uses a safety bar to squat with. He physically is going to be able to get his arm into that position. His mobility is getting better in his shoulder, but it's something he's going to work on. It's like, oh, I'm not properly squatting though, but he's got quite a lot of weight on the safety bar squat. Like, that's still an impressive. He's still working hard, and it's like, well, that's still a squat, but it's specific to that person. Not everyone has to use a safety bar. For me, from not playing as much rugby anymore, competing in powerlifting, sometimes the safety bar is a nice treat for me, because squatting low bar, it's a little bit nicer on my shoulders, especially if I have no competitions coming up. It's quite nice there. Whereas I think, you know, when we're talking about that filter, some people think that they have to do this exercise, whereas actually it's similar to deadlift. I've got some clients who are really, really strong, but they only ever use a trap bar. They have no intention of competing in powerlifting. They just want to feel good, feel strong, look good. Let's just stick with a trap bar then. That's specific to you, because from my point of view, I don't want to then, I mean, sometimes people have said, yeah, I want to give a straight bar a go. Awesome, let's give that a go. But then I won't want to do that at the sake of injuring their lower back or causing injuries, because then that way, when you've spoken about that consistency, that intent and effort in the gym, they're not going to then be able to do that, because then it's got to be put into trying to come back from injury. One thing that I just wanted to touch on when you mentioned about, you know, the clients that you're working with and the level that they're working with, and, you know, describing them as robots that do that same program, is that or have you found that's a trait that they've just got in them? Because, you know, to get to that level, you need that kind of fixed mindset of, I'm going to get to this point. Or is that a skill that you've, from, you know, looking at when they've trained previously or taking them to the next level, is that a skill that they've learned over time, if that kind of makes sense?
It's definitely part of their DNA. It really is. So as an example, I can predict very early on, if new clients starting training with me, okay, I can predict within the first week how successful they're going to be and how long that they're going to stick with the program for. By the program, I mean work with me for. Okay. And in large part, that comes down to their check-ins. Okay. Now, my clients can message me anytime. So I coach through, you know, my coaching app. So I can do, you know, detailed coaching videos and whatever. It's super efficient, and they can track their workout numbers, and I can log it down, whatever. So it works really, really well. They can send form check videos and so on. So they can message me and do things anytime. But each week we have what I call a monitoring form. So during the week I can see your numbers, whatever. I'm not someone that like, there's your training program, and I'll speak to you in 6 weeks to see how you're getting along. We do a Zoom consult, we do a Zoom call in 6 weeks, and I chat with you and see how you are. No, you can literally speak with me every day. So when it comes to the weekend, we do a monitoring form. Now, the monitoring form is simply there to get a subjective idea of how they felt that week. So asking questions like, how was your sleep this week? How did your joints feel this week? What was your level of DOMS? What was your muscle soreness this week? All questions like that, and just giving a rating. So by the end of the week, I've got obviously their workout data. I've also got how their week felt. Okay. Now, I've kind of gone off tangent here, but there is a point to this. That form I send every Sunday. Okay. The best clients and the ones that stick the longest and get the great results, that form is sent back to me on the day. Like clockwork, all the time. Okay. The clients that tend to not do the best or fall off the wagon, they can send that form Wednesday, Thursday, or I'm having to chase them up. Let's be honest, it takes 2 minutes. It's a digital form. You literally click the link that I send and you tick the box on the rating scale, and that's it. It takes 2 minutes. So if someone can't be bothered to put in the effort to give me feedback that helps you, then obviously, that there's something there within that mindset that they're not fully committed to that process, or committing to getting where they want to be. So, I talk about, they are robots. They will literally do what you set them to do, but that is within their DNA, they don't always love training. I think, again, it's a common misconception. I train most days of the week, even though I shouldn't. If I was programming for myself, I would tell myself I need to be training less. I need to bring my volume down, but I don't, because it's a mindset thing. Yeah. But I don't always like to train. I will train more because I feel guilty if I don't train, or I know that I feel better after I train, versus I really want to work out today. It's one of those things. And that's the same with, people at the highest level. They don't want to train every day, but that's the exact same as that person that might be going to the gym for the first time, who, might be arguing that, oh, but they love training, I hate training. Well, no, most people, they probably don't want to be at the gym. They just want the results. They no one wants to go out and buy a drill and a drill bit. They just want the hole, right? They want the hole that the drill bit makes. Like that. It's the same idea. But yeah, back to your point, it's fully DNA, but you can tell straight away, how quickly someone's going to drop off, just purely based on when they do their feedback form each week.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Like what you said, I think a lot of things now. I actually finished reading Atomic Habits again, and when it mainly because I actually recommended it to a client, and then I realised, no, actually, I better actually brush up on what it actually means if they ask me questions. And they just say, it says in there, just make it easy. And ticking a box, it doesn't really get any easier than that to do, because that way, that's what ties into that consistency to be able to build that up from there. And what's interesting, or what I found funny there, is the response when people say, oh well, they just love training. And I always ask, well, every day, do you feel awesome every single day? Is every day the best day of your life, PB day? No, there's going to be days where you're going to be feeling tired. There's going to be days where you've maybe had an argument with your partner or whatever else, or I don't know, you've burnt your eggs in the morning, or whatever it may be. It's just going to be one of those things where not everything's going to be plain sailing, but you've still got to get those things done. It's a little bit like if you were that annoyed, you would still brush your teeth in the morning. It's just one of those things. I put there's a phrase that I like as well. It's like 10% of the time you're going to go into the gym feeling absolutely awful, feeling rubbish. 10% of the time you're going to go in feeling as though you can fight lions, and then 80% of the time you just rock it up and getting it done. And I think that sometimes people think that they're going to get a PB every single time. I always relate to, I train quite a lot of power lifters. Once you've been in it for a while, all of a sudden the PB starts slowing down, because as a beginner, every week's a PB. Anything that you use is going to be that. So yeah, I thought that was quite a good topic to touch on. Quite a lot of topics thrown in there: training, coaching, a couple of tangents thrown in there. But the last question that I like to ask, from everything that we've spoken about, whether it be for the trainers listening, for clients listening, what would be your take-home points or words of wisdom from everything that we've spoken about there?
You know what? I'll kind of finish it with one of my favorite phrases. Okay, and it's applicable to a lot of things. And that phrase is as simple as: information without action is useless. Okay, I know that sounds very, very simple, and kind of can feel a little bit in your face, but we're all surrounded by every day with so much information. You touched upon it. We've got too much access to information. Okay, the thing is, all that information, most people don't ever tend to do anything with it, right? If you're a personal trainer learning something, then you don't always apply it, test it. If you're learning something about business, consuming, we spoke Audible. Okay, let's say I'm going through an Audible book, and it's an 8-hour Audible book, and I've just completed it, and I move on to the next Audible book, and then move on to the next Audible book. I'm getting those little pleasure rewards by completing it, rather than actually taking action on what I've read or what I've listened to. So if instead, we, for example, let's say an Audible book, if we complete that book and then maybe just write some take homes, actioned those things, tested them, with clients, with ourselves, with our business, whatever, before we then move on to the next book, then we're going to get a whole lot more out of it. Even, I'm a big fan of listening to an Audible book, and then if I really like it, buying the physical book and, scribbling some things down on whatever, if it's that kind of style of book. So, we're actually actioning on that book, or even listening to that Audible book again. Sometimes we get more out of listening to the same book a few times and just focusing on that, before we go to another book, which tells us to do something else completely different. So that whole information about action is useless. Just, it kind of resonates with a lot of things. And that's, people think too much about things. People consume so much information, but they don't tend to act on it or try it to actually get the rewards. As you say, we're a generation, we've got more access to information than anyone else before us. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of us just aren't using it as well as we can do.
Yeah, I think that's quite a good sum up of quite a lot of topics that we've touched on there. We've spoken about, from a trainer's point of view in terms of adding programs in or finding exercises and then giving it a go. So yeah, I thought that was a really good sum up from there. Thanks a lot, Gareth, for taking the time to jump on. Really, really enjoyed chatting with you today. I know from reading your articles and the information that you put out there, been looking forward to chatting with you. If anyone has any questions about what we've chatted about today, see the content and information you put out there, where could people find you or reach out to you?
Everything's on my main website, so I link all articles and things like that off my main website, which is thefitnessmaverick.com. Instagram, I'm at the Fitness Maverick. Facebook at the Fitness Maverick. Just, that's the easiest thing to remember.
Nice, awesome. Well, thanks again, Gareth, for taking the time to jump on. Like I say, really enjoyed chatting with you today. Thanks a lot to everyone listening, and I will see you all next week.